listening to a download from the outdoorstation.co.uk. Number 488.
Hello and welcome back to the Outdoor Station. In September of last year, in podcast number 476, you may remember I spoke with Katie Tunn regarding her 40-day and 40-night challenge of living on a remote island off the west coast of Scotland, surrounded by nothing but nature. It's a really good listen. Katie is an artist and also an Ordnance Survey Get Outdoors champion who moved from the hustle and bustle of London to the Isle of Skye a few years back to follow her passion for caring for the outdoors, wildlife conservation and to fuel her creative soul. Like many of us, she obviously has a thing for islands and has now embarked on capturing the character of not one island but 82 of them. Of course, all the links to Katie and many of the topics we discuss here can all be found over on the outdoorstation.co.uk show notes. It's a great challenge, and I'll let Katie explain the details.
"82 Islands" is a trip that's based on a poster that was created by Ordnance Survey along with Sheffield University. And what they did was they charted all of Great Britain's islands over 5 kilometres squared. And that ranges from ones in England, such as the Isle of Wight or Portsea Island, and then all the way up to Shetland, Orkney, all the islands off the west coast. And luckily, I'm right in the middle, really, being on Skye, because most of the islands are in Scotland. So the idea of 82 Islands, because I've always had a bit of a thing about islands, 82 Islands is a chance for me to visit all of these and to get to know them, because each island in the UK is completely different, especially up here in the Western Isles. You'll go to one half of an island and it'll be completely different from the other half. So, for example, Lewis and Harris, you go to Lewis and it's very, you get heather moors, you get the peat moors, you get the standing stones. It all feels very different to Harris down in the south, which is beaches, and you get the hills and kind of rugged mountainous areas. So the idea is to kind of learn a little bit about the differences between each island, and furthermore to see how we can experience them without creating too much pressure on them in terms of visitors and footfall and things like that. And the reason why this is important to me is because living on Skye over the last maybe 5 or so years, we've seen a real difference in increased visitor numbers. There's a lot of people coming here to see the sights. Obviously, it's a very beautiful place, but it is affecting the landscape, it's affecting the wildlife, and it's affecting the people who live here. So I want to look at these islands and maybe see how we can visit them, get to know them, and do it slowly and get to know them responsibly, rather than just turning up, taking a few pictures, and then dashing off. So on each island, what I'm hoping to do is I'm doing a bivvy, so I'm staying outside, sleeping under the stars somewhere. I'm doing a wild swim, I'm doing a beach clean, and I'm making a piece of art. So far that has been doing drawings on each island. But already it's been really interesting finding out the differences between each island and getting to know people on each one.
Well, certainly looking at your blog, you give a lovely description of the first 3 islands that you visited. Obviously, naturally, you started on Skye, and I think you intend to finish on Skye. And then you've done Iona and Berneray?
Berneray, yep.
And what I have noticed when I did a quick look at numbers, because we were in Skye last year, and I hadn't realised what the actual figures were, although obviously, like you're mentioning, I did actually see the impact of volumes of people and not necessarily all the facilities. But the figures from the tourist office last year is there were 10,000 inhabitants, people who live on the island and work on the island, and over 660,000 visitors.
Yeah, that makes sense. It feels like it sometimes.
Yeah, I know, it's phenomenal, isn't it? And I know you live in a fairly remote area, but even that part of Skye is fairly busy with visitors, isn't it?
Yeah, that's correct. Living up in the North End, it's the place that's on all the postcards and the Instagram pictures and the bucket list stuff. So, we do get large visitor numbers up here. Luckily, I'm slightly tucked away, but on the roads you do notice it.
So why do you think we're drawn to islands, attracted to islands?
Oh, Oh, what a question. Do you know what? If you'd asked me a while ago, I used to have a really good answer for this. Why do you think we're attracted to islands?
What I meant to mention to you, actually, the last conversation we had when you did the 40 Days and 40 Nights on an island has had loads of downloads. It's one of the most popular downloads in the last 12 months. So I think even that simple description attracted people to the idea of simplicity and the elegance of simplicity, but also the responsibility that goes with visiting these remote places. And I do admire you for the sort of combination of things you're trying to do, because on one hand, you're obviously telling people about the beauty and the appeal of the place, and using social media, which of course is going to increase the visitors. But at the same time, you're trying to educate people and say, look, consider the impact that you're making, because unlike perhaps the towns or cities where you come from, you don't really notice the changes on a daily basis as people go through their life. You can see quite clearly the effect that 100 people or 1,000 people make when they pass through a tourist area.
Yeah, that's right. And I think because I'm an Ordnance Survey Get Outside champion, and we're trying to get people outside for their mental and physical health, I think we've got a huge responsibility to actually make sure that they do that responsibly. So as well, I put a lot of stuff on Instagram, I blog and stuff like that. So I can't stop people from visiting these areas, and I wouldn't want to stop people from visiting these areas. In Skye, we rely on tourism for most of our businesses, but what we can do is we can say, look, but if you do come here, please realise that this is our home. This is the home for wildlife and stuff like that. But it is something. It's something that I do struggle with when I look at the increased visitor numbers, and I think, oh, am I contributing to this? But I think it's just a case of education and just trying to make sure that when people do visit, they appreciate it and leave it how they found it. And what I want to say with the 82 islands is to maybe try and leave places better than you found them, pick stuff up as you go along, or help out local businesses, or volunteer, or if you can, something like that.
We live on the Malvern Hills, which is a very rural place, and I know Skye, like us, is suffering from irresponsible campfires and people leaving. They'll bring a barbecue to a pretty location, they will have their food, and then for some reason they don't take everything away with them. They just think, oh well, there's a bin there, we'll just pile it up. And within hours almost, the bin can be overflowing and there's bags of rubbish. And it says, well, you brought it, just take it away with you.
Exactly. I just don't get it. And what I really don't understand is that people come to see how beautiful these natural places are. So to leave them less than how you found them, I just can't get my head around that.
Well, that brings me on to really your first report of the overnight that you started with on Skye, when you went to Lealt Falls.
Yep.
Would you like to relate the story, what happened there?
It wasn't the most pleasant start to my island trip. So it was slightly rainy when I got there, but that meant it was nice and quiet and no midges. And I was all excited to start my island trip. I had my camera ready, and I toddled down the hillside towards the waterfall, which is the main attraction at the area. And it's just beautiful. It's remarkable. It looks like something out of a film set. And then when I got to the bottom of the path, there was this massive, great big pile of human waste and baby wipes and tissues. And it just, we've all seen it. I think every single national park in the UK is struggling with this at the moment. And I don't know many people who go walking and don't come across stuff like this. But it just shows how important this is. And it's just so frustrating to see people leaving this. It's fine, you can get caught out, but clean it up afterwards, because it's dangerous. It's dangerous for wildlife, and it's people's workplace and people's homes. So if anything, it was a bit of a shock to the system, but it kind of installed in me how important it was for 82 Islands to be about leave no trace, and how it's about being responsible and leaving places better than you found them. Because before then, that was just a side thing, and now I want it to be the primary aim of the project.
I think it was just a remarkable coincidence that occurred on the very first trip, and as you say, reinforced all those key points that you want to get across to people, which I think hopefully this podcast will make people think about these sort of things as they listen to it. But I also realise when I was cyber stalking you that obviously that isn't the first time you've been to those falls when you were a star of a pop video.
Yeah, so I've been there before in equally as much rain before. So yeah, I was very lucky. There's a local band called Nightworks, which is one of my favourite bands, and because I'd done lots of wild swimming, Dol Yowan, who's a filmmaker from the area, he asked me to be in the video that he was creating for them. So that was a real treat for me, actually. I was really proud of that.
I'm not surprised. It's a great video. It's had 75,000 views, so it's obviously...
Has it?
Yes,
Blimey.
yes. You're a star in your own lunchtime. You really are.
It's all about that song, though. That song is amazing. I just wish that I sing it, but I'm sure I get the Gallical wrong. Yes. I wish I knew the words to everything.
Yeah, it is beautiful to listen to, and marvellous scenery as well. So I thought, yeah, but that must have been great fun to do. Now, you said about the 82 islands, you wanted to explore the character and personalities. I mean, you live on Skye, and you have been there for several years now. So have you learned a different character or personality related to the visit that you did on that particular day? Or is that going to be quite a tricky one because you obviously are a resident?
Yeah, I guess I hadn't actually thought of learning more from my stay on Skye. At the moment, I've just used it to reiterate what I've learned from living here, which is things like trying to get people to take away their waste and to know how to drive on single track roads and things like that. But that's interesting, actually. I think perhaps that's a job for me to maybe look at Skye as a visitor for the final time that I come here and round off my trip, maybe.
Yeah, I think with the other islands sort of under your belt, you might look at it and just have a slightly different slant or a different take on it, which will be interesting. So you started the project, if you like, in May, and you did the first island and everything was looking fantastic. And then all of a sudden, you shot off to go and help somebody do a Land's End to John O'Groats. And watching your social media is like, well, it's like, where's Wally? Where's Katie now?
I know. Sometimes I don't even know where I am. But yes, so I'd agreed a while ago to be on Mel's support team for her Land's End to John O'Groats hand cycle world record. And so what I wanted to do was I wanted to get a couple of islands under my belt before I went away to do that. And that's the thing with the island trip. I had hoped to do it originally. I was aiming for around a year. I wasn't too strict about it. But now, two things: fitting it in around work and finances and making art, and also just getting to know the islands as well. That's going to take I'm probably looking about 2 years, and then maybe another year or two to mop up all the smaller islands which aren't on the list. Yeah, it was amazing experience to go and help Mel and to be part of the support team. I've never done anything like that before, so it was an amazing experience.
By the sound of it and the speed that she did it, which I think was just over 6 days, it was very difficult to try and keep up with her.
It really was. It was a very intense experience. We'd be up at 3:30 in the morning, pack everything together. We'd need to get Mel fed, Mel taped up with the physio on the road. So it was it was a constant working team, which was amazing. And the fact that she managed to do it through rain, wind, all this kind of stuff, and going through the night on the last day was just incredible. I think she's an absolute superwoman.
For people who don't realise, it's all upper body strength, isn't it? It's all hand power. There's no leg power at all.
Oh, completely. Yeah, it's one movement really. I remember we were in the car behind, and I was kind of trying to do the movement as well, and I was seeing how long I could do it for, and after 10 minutes, I was like, gosh, this really hurts. I'm going to have to stop. So it's really quite incredible. I think she's the closest person I know to a superhero, really.
I think she'd be fantastic to talk to one day. It'd be great.
Oh, yeah.
Podcasts are based solely around self-powered travel. If you walk, run, cycle, paddle, climb, explore or sail, we want to share your adventure, hear your highs and lows, and inspire others to go out and do more.
Coming back to your islands then, the second island, how did you find that?
Berneray, well, it's actually one that I've been to before, but what I wanted to do with this trip was to look at them all in a different light. So I cleaned the slates really, and actually it's really interesting because, as I said, I think all the islands have a different things that affect them, and whereas on Skye, one of the problems is increased tourist numbers and the huge amounts of footfall. Berneray, one of the things that's important there is that they've got the macaire, which is the coastal seagrass on the sand, all the beautiful flowers in the dunes and all these rare orchids and nesting birds and things. So their issue is the erosion of the macaire, and also people coming with camper vans and stocking up and not buying from local shops and things. So it was really interesting to go over there and see how different the impact of all these extra visitors has on these places. And also, I mean, if you've seen pictures of Berneray, it's a wee paradise really. But yeah, I've got a bit of a soft spot for it anyway, so it was a nice one to go over to.
I think I read on your blog that your conclusion was that a lot of people that go there are actually repeat visitors, and that tends to keep the impact down.
Yeah, that's what I was talking to an artist in the area, and that's what they said. They said that often with the smaller islands, when it takes a little bit more effort for people to get over there, they're often visitors who are a little bit more diligent about cleaning up after themselves, which was quite interesting. And that was an idea that was echoed on Iona, that they have almost no problems with litter and rubbish, which was wonderful actually. And it's nice to know that that's something that doesn't. We have a bit of a large litter problem here on Skye, but often it's because of facilities. But it was nice to know that that's not universal to all islands.
Well, I was looking for some figures again on Berneray, and I could see that there's 130 registered residents, but I couldn't find actually the number of visitors, which would have been interesting to compare it to Skye. Mm-hmm. But certainly from a character point of view, again, coming back to the personality, have you made any conclusions?
Oh, it's got I think it's got a lovely little character, but I think I would probably say that about all the islands. It's very interesting. What's nice is there's an equal mix of fishing communities looking after visitors and crofting communities over there. And it's a very close-knit community, but also very open to visitors, which was lovely. And it's just generally beautiful. And as you saw, they've got, you might have read in my blog about the hostel up at the end, they've got a very welcoming set of Highland hospitality kind of. They've got great nature up there.
And I understand a gin and tonic goes a long way with you.
It does, definitely. Yeah, the universal sign of new friendship.
Warm welcome, yes. Yeah, well, it gets a lovely read on your blog, and I'll put links to all that on the show notes. As a matter of interest, actually, it just suddenly occurred to me while we're talking about this. Do you know with these smaller islands how they get rid of their rubbish? So when they've gathered it together, do they ship it to the mainland and incinerate it or something?
They do. They have a rubbish collection that joins on with ours. So they'll have a bin lorry that will come and visit once every 2 weeks or once a week. And it will be taken away on the ferry, just the same as it is on the mainland. And it will go to the same place as the mainland. But this is also something to think about if you're a visitor visiting these islands. If you can take away your rubbish, then it means that you're not putting extra pressure on these services, which are already quite sparse considering the logistics of getting bin lorries to the islands and getting rubbish off the islands. So that's something which I didn't really consider, but it makes sense when you think about it.
Well, I know your third island, that's the furthest one we've gone so far, is Iona. And that's again, right, yeah. just to dig around with the figures, I noticed they've got 120 residents and they had 130,000 visitors. So again, a massive impact, really, of tourist visitors and whatever.
Yeah, Iona was a very interesting one. I don't know how many others there are going to be like this, but when I spoke to the local residents, they actually said that a lot of the problems that they had weren't from extra visitors, they were from the infrastructure and the management of the Highland Council itself. They are actually incredibly positive. They don't have litter problems. They have the cars. The cars that visit there are ones that are already registered on the island, so people are foot passengers, and you get these huge coach loads of people coming from Mull. But they're all there for a couple of hours. They'll eat and drink in the local cafes, and then they'll return, and there won't be traffic or there won't be any problems like that. And actually, it's really interesting to see how successful it is to limit vehicles on a small island like that. Something which they don't do in Berneray, but I think if they had the numbers that visited Iona in Berneray, they would have real problems with traffic.
Well, you're saying that you've been bivvying at the 3 locations, and I presume that's the route that you'll take with the rest of the islands, as you say. Mm-hmm. Would you like to just talk us through your evening, your traditional evening, with or without the socialising, of setting up camp and whereabouts you get your head down and what experiences you've had so far?
Okay, so the bivvying thing, basically, I try and tuck myself away out of sight and far away from a road. So I'll have my rucksack on. I usually don't have a car or anything, so I'll go for a wander, maybe half an hour away from the road, and then set up camp, which is so simple, really. It's basically just putting out a roll mat, and I've got a sleeping bag inside a bivvy bag, which keeps it waterproof, and then just tucking in for the night, maybe having some food if I've got it there, and just tucking in and getting warm. So it's the most basic way of sleeping, but I love the fact that you can look up to the sky and you can listen to the birds as you fall asleep. Things like the snipe making that lovely noise with their tails as they fly in the evening, and seabirds and oyster catchers and things like that. So what I like about bivvying is the fact that you just feel like you're in the environment, which I feel is a great way to experience something at low impact. The only problem is the rain can sometimes be a little bit challenging. My intention is to invite friends and newbie campers with me on some of these island trips, but I'll probably give them a tent just in case it rains, because I think it's not particularly pleasant to be stuck in a bivvy in the rain. It's an acquired taste.
It's a unique experience, isn't it? Definitely.
It is.
Yeah, in fact, I was reading earlier on today on Facebook, one of the groups, there was a gentleman that went to Sandwood Bay on the way to Cape Wrath, which would have been an absolutely blissful place for a wild camp, and it was his first wild camp. And he just lost the confidence to do it, whether it was, you can't quite say fear, I think it was just the apprehension of the complete unknown. And there's been a lot of women that have made similar comments about where can they go and how safe will they be. So would you have anything you could say to them for people to consider the benefits of wild camping?
Well, in terms of safety, and perhaps this is primarily towards women who are nervous about camping, I get asked a lot about whether I feel safe out on my own camping, and to that I tend to say, well, I go to places where no one else will be, and that's part of the reason why I go where I go, is that I like the fact that there's no one there, and if there's someone a bit dodgy, they're not going to be looking in a field for you, they're going to be looking in a city where there's lots of people. But I'm not sure how I can advise on confidence, because for me it's my escape, it's my way of getting out and kind of resetting and recharging. So for me it's almost like if I'm feeling not confident, like that's where I'll go to escape from being busy, or perhaps situations that I need to think over and work out what to do, stressful situations. So perhaps I'm not the best person to advise in terms of confidence. But I guess if someone is feeling nervous, I mean, I'm always welcome to have people come and join me. But then, of course, that's another thing where the safety thing comes in. That's why I don't open my trips up completely to people online, because of my own personal safety, and I have to be quite careful about that. But yeah, it's a tricky one.
Well, I sort of made a comment that personally, I feel that when you go to a remote place and you have your electronics are switched off and you don't hear any traffic, you don't see anybody else, there's no other sort of influences in your environment at all apart from nature, pure nature, whether it be a stream or the bird song or whatever, or the wind rustling the trees, I find it actually a unique experience that in some respect I think a lot of people, perhaps it's so unique they have never experienced anything like it in their life, because you can be with friends and not be talking and looking at the view, and that's lovely. But it's completely different when your friends aren't there and you are just with your own thoughts and your own awareness of where you are, how you're feeling, the feel of the grass, the wind on your skin, etc., etc. I think there's a powerful element of simplicity that we have dismissed perhaps over the years, because we're so used to being busy and having things interrupting our minds all the time.
That's really interesting. I remember there's a comedian who once they were doing I think they were chatting to their kids in the car, and he said, turn that phone off, turn that music off, and he said that the reason why we feel like we have to be busy all the time sometimes is the fact that when it's quiet, when we turn the music off and when we have nothing to look at, we have our own emotions to face. You start looking inwards rather than being distracted by things outwards, which I guess kind of runs along the same line. But it's interesting, this thing of being solo as well, because you say about people being reassured by having friends next to them whilst camping. I feel more nervous if I've got someone near me, because I'm more conscious of, are they happy? Are they can I keep up with them? Would they rather be doing this? So it's interesting how all our minds look at it in different ways.
Yeah, very interesting. Well, I'm sure that's a subject of another podcast at a later date. But anyway, coming back to your bivvying, I noticed you, just to give people confidence, you do have a favourite accessory that you take with you, along with your Kelly kettle, which you fill and keep you warm during the night.
Oh my God, I love my hot water bottle. Oh, do you know what though? Now I've got two dogs. I haven't taken it out since I've got the two new dogs. But oh gosh, yeah. Once you try it, and everyone says, all the outdoor forums, all this, they say have an Nalgene bottle or a normal water bottle and fill it with warm water, but nothing beats an old-fashioned rubber hot water bottle that's far too heavy to go in a pack, but it's so worth it. And I feel like I can sleep in anything as long as I've got something warm in my sleeping bag.
There you go. When you're on Desert Island Discs, that'll be your luxury item.
It will be. There'll be a cup of tea and a hot water bottle.
Yeah. You have had, since we last spoke, you've had an incredibly busy lifestyle. And I just wondered if you wouldn't mind just sharing how it works for you. You're obviously a creative artist. Your work is absolutely beautiful and hopefully is very popular. Well, it seems to be very popular because every time I look at something, it says sold next to it. And that's obviously a great help. But I mean, from a financial point of view, and obviously living where you are in the remote section of Skye, is it a tough life as to be an independent artist and manage and obviously fit all these other things in as well?
I think in terms of financial things, I'd say a lot of my friends see me traveling here and there, and it looks expensive, but I tend to find all the things that I really like to do are free. And being on an artist salary, I mean, unless you're one of the top artists, you're not making a lot of money. But the lucky thing about living in Skye is that it's a lot cheaper than when I used to live down in London. I can afford to spend less time working and more time following things that I want to do. It's not a particularly easy life. I'm never going to have a nice car, and I see my friends in tropical holidays doing all these things, and sometimes I think, oh gosh, I wonder if I should have taken a different path. But it's a cliche, but I think the best things in life are free. So basically, I work to live. Oh gosh, I'm coming out with all the cliches now. Work to live, not live to work. But it's nice in being. I guess being an artist is a pretty cool job because you get to work from home and you get to be inspired by whatever you enjoy in life. So that's pretty jammy. I'm quite lucky that I can support myself. But it does mean that you don't often see me in new clothes or in a fancy car or booking fancy things. But I think it's just about prioritizing what you enjoy. So, for example, I might not be able to spend money on a nice hotel, but at the same time, I can go down to the beach and take a bottle of champagne. So that's, that feels luxurious. That feels special because I've saved money because I'm sleeping on the sand. So it's just about prioritizing what makes life enjoyable, I guess.
So no regrets from your point of view then?
No regrets whatsoever. No.
Good to hear.
No.
From the social media, I see that you've got 2 new friends that join you when you're out bivvying on these island trips now, and I can hear they're in the background. They've been very good so far. What's for people who are interested in taking small dogs or dogs with them in similar situations? How have you found the experience? And just explain what type of dogs they are for people.
Okay, so they're licking. I've just let them in, so they're licking me and sneezing all over me. Right, so I've just adopted 2 little rescue dogs, and I told the rescue centre that I wanted one old dog that would be used to walking, that I might just be able to give a couple of years of nice outdoor life to. And they saw some weakness and ended up giving me these 2 little monkeys who are a lot younger and full of beans. But I've been quite lucky, actually. I think when you get a dog from a rescue, you get to say, like, I want a dog that's good at walking, or I want a dog that's used to being outside, or that's not scared of water or something like that. So I've been quite lucky with these 2. And really, I'm just getting to know what it's like taking a dog around with me. I've taken previous dogs to bothies and stuff, but this is the first time I've taken them bivvying. And it means needing to have a dog that doesn't run away and doesn't chase farm animals and stuff. That was very important to me. But I'm quite lucky that they're quite small, so I can pick them up if the going gets too rough. I don't really know what I can advise on in terms of taking dogs camping, because I'm just kind of muddling it through as we go. They've got all the equipment, they've got all the coats and life jackets and things like that, so it's just about keeping them safe, really.
And they're terriers, aren't they?
One's a Chihuahua and the other one is a Chihuahua Jack Russell cross.
Oh, right, okay.
So, I mean, they're ridiculous. They're basically rats or rabbits, and they don't really make up the whole size of a normal dog between them, but it means that they're quite handy for tucking under an arm if they're going too slowly on a hill or something like that. But it's interesting, but it does mean that I don't have to at the moment I don't have to have a hot water bottle, which is nice. Self-propelled hot water bottles. Just the only problem is they poo, and that's not a problem with the hot water bottle, but they're cute, so I'll make up for it.
Excellent. Well, final question then. Obviously, we've got 3 islands now under your belt. Do you have sort of a sequential list of the other islands? What are you thinking of next? Or is it a case of you've got to get X amount of work done and then you'll think about it?
It's just a case of seeing when my schedule is free and seeing what I can fit in when. I've been looking at local islands. So, for example, Rasay and Rona and Pabe are very close. They're just off the coast of Skye. So it's quite tempting to go for the low-hanging fruit first. I kind of need to up my speed a little bit. Hopefully once summer's done, I've got all my exhibition work out of the way, it's going to be a little bit quicker. No, there's not really, I don't really have a plan. It's just what comes up when. And if, say, I've got friends who want to go to a particular place, or if, say, there's an interesting say wildlife trail in a particular place, then I'll try and aim to go there for them. But no, it's all as what I can fit in and when I can fit in, really. So I've got to keep it casual around work at the moment.
Well, Katie, thank you very much indeed for taking the time to talk to us. It's been lovely to catch up with you. It's been fascinating to hear about your last 12 months or so. And I'm sure because of the pure nature of the content of this, it will be equally as popular as the last podcast. And obviously I wish you well. And I do hope that you can find the time somewhere in your busy schedule in the next year or so. And we'll catch up with sort of halfway through and see how you're getting on.
Oh, thanks, Bob. Well, I'm hoping, I'll have a lot more islands to talk about once we speak next time. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Let's see if this podcast is as popular as our previous chat on number 476. If you haven't listened to it, do go back and check it out. All the links to everything we discuss can be found over on the show notes, and I'm sure Katie won't object if you are tempted by one of her beautiful blue and gold pieces. Such rich colours from the Isle of Skye. Now, I'm very bad at all this social media engagement stuff. However, if you like the show and the back catalogue of almost 500 podcasts, please put a review on iTunes or drop me a line or comment on Twitter, Facebook or Instagram. I seem to get thousands of downloads per episode, millions in total, and just a handful of comments on social media. Well, I guess I just can't get everything right. So until next time, folks, take care out there and bye for now.
Thank you for listening to this podcast. To hear or see more from our extensive free library, please visit theoutdoorstation.co.uk.